Hey everyone, welcome back to Birds of a Feather Talk Together. This week it was my pick, and I went with the red-headed woodpecker. You love them, I love them, and honestly, who doesn't get excited about this incredible bird? We'll be diving into what makes it so special with the usual crew, married ornithologists and curators of birds at the Field Museum, John Bates and Shannon Hackett, and of course me, RJ, along with my wife Amanda. Okay, go grab your binoculars and let's get into it.
It's really fun to work with those people. And it's important that when you're doing things like that, that you get feedback from them about how you talk to people. Are you clear when you talk to people? Are you reaching people? Are they hearing what you have to say? And you can't be so proud to think that you can't get better. Scientists, we are not trained to talk to the public ever. So unless you take special steps, special classes, which there are available, or you practice a lot, which is what we and our students do, then you kind of can tell that you're talking to people in a way that they understand without using too many fancy words or words that people don't relate to. So speaking plainly and clearly with the enthusiasm and excitement about what you do that takes practice. But it's so fun to watch kind of light bulbs go off in other people, to watch them make connections in their head. And the idea that someone would listen to this podcast and then take the initiative to go into the museum, I mean, that's what we all want. That's what museums should want the staff to do, is to speak in a way that other people say, oh, I need to go see that. I'm going to go to the museum and see that. They talked about it. I'm going to go see it. So, yeah, Matt might have made my whole year.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
way to
awesome.
go, Matt.
And what you're doing is making an impact too. It's so cool. I'm pretty sure he lives on the East Coast and he came all the way to Chicago. So, I mean, that's pretty exciting.
Awesome. Yeah.
That's you making the podcast available.
Oh, we're all doing it together.
But it just makes me really grateful about how kind and funny and interested and interesting people have been with respect to this podcast. So that's really, I think that's a really good thing. You know, the internet is full of a lot of awful things at times, but the things associated with our podcast have always been really, really positive. So
yeah, we've met some really special people. It's definitely like opened up just people from all over. So that's been a really positive thing that I've loved about this. And so this week's my bird, and I've made all of you guys go first. I'm nervous. So I picked the red-headed woodpecker for mine. And the reason I picked it, I mean, it's such a cool bird. I'm sure everybody agrees with that. But Amanda and I have a lot of red-headed woodpecker near where we live. And so it was one of the first birds that we really got into just when we got into birding. And there's like a forest preserve near us that we see them. And there's like a lot of dead trees in that forest preserve. And so I know that's important to them. And it's kind of something that as Amanda and I have gotten more into birding has been like an advocate for like keep the dead trees up because birds are going to live in there. And I know that red-headed woodpeckers definitely need them. And actually, as I was reading more about them, just like where to find them, it says look for red-headed woodpeckers in scattered open woodlots, dead timber in swamps or pine savannas. In this forest preserve right across from us, like floods. And so it is kind of like a swamp or like a bog almost. And so it's like, oh, that's clearly why they're there. And so I don't know, I just wanted to point that out. But I also love that they're easy to ID. It's like some birds, even if you don't have binoculars, it gets tough. But when you see a red-headed woodpecker, that like bright red head, and I feel like the color of its head too is very distinctive, that like really saturated red. And then that kind of like white V on the back of its, like on its back and the bottom of its feathers too. It's just really easy to identify. So that's always like a fun thing. And also during like the cicada apocalypse last summer, the summer before where we had all the cicadas, I remember like walking near this forest preserve and seeing cicadas flying by and seeing the red-headed woodpeckers like fly through the air and like take out cicadas out of the sky like they were eating them. And so as I was doing my research, I read that like red-headed woodpeckers they're one of the few woodpeckers I think that hunt insects out of the sky, that's unique to them. So it was fun to like see that firsthand and then go back and research and be like, oh, that's something, that not only they do, but it's a pretty unique thing to them as far as woodpeckers go. But one of the things I did not realize, and we're so spoiled kind of with where we live that we get to see a lot of them, is that there has been a lot of like decline that red-headed woodpeckers. I mean, I think that's true of a lot of species of birds, but from what I was reading, that their decline has been, they've had a major decline over the past 50 years or so. And so I don't know, I've got another few other stories I can sprinkle in, but those were kind of the opening thoughts on the red-headed woodpecker. I don't know, did anyone else have any?
I think the decline has been halted. So for a
Oh,
while, they were their status had changed to having some concern over them. But I think in the last 20 years, their populations have rebounded a bit, such that they're now of least concern again. So, it's an
oh, that's
interesting
good.
thing because they definitely did. Apparently, they had like a 60 or 70% decline in their populations over the course of 50
Oh,
years. But I think that they've recovered a bit.
I, I,
Some of that
I
recovery is probably from the blight of chestnuts and, and other, beeches and things. I think I read that there were a lot more acorns available when those trees went kaput. So maybe they're going to be on their way down again. I don't know.
I think they're an example of a bird that almost by definition has major uh, peaks and valleys associated with their population just in general, which makes it really hard to assess when things are going down, whether you should necessarily be concerned or whether it's just kind of a natural trend associated with the availability of food items for them, which is oftentimes uh, oaks. They love acorns, and they use them in the winter. And it highlights actually, I think, another aspect of things, which is that it's really hard to know where the bottleneck that might be affecting their populations is coming from, because they seem to be able to survive across a broad geographic area of the eastern U.S. In specific habitats where they like dead trees, for instance. But dead trees are kind of a semi-ephemeral resource in the sense that what it means is some trees had to die in order for them to create the habitat that they like. And eventually those trees are going to fall down, in which case, unless there are more dead trees being created nearby, the red-headed woodpeckers have to start moving around a little bit. And so it's an interesting bird. I mean, we were talking about olive-sided flycatcher, and it may be sort of similar in the sense that it's taking advantage of ephemeral gaps in boreal forests in a lot of places. Well, by definition, those are going to not always be there, and they may grow back up over time. And so I was thinking about, as I was reading up on red-headed woodpecker for this, and it's a great choice for your bird because it is so identifiable. And one of the things that surprises me is you've got this incredibly bright colored bird that where the sexes are identical. So
oh, right.
there's a difference in size, but other than that, you can't tell them apart by plumage. And so they are readily noticeable by people. And yet at the same time, we'll have people come into the museum and I'll show them a bird skin of a red-headed woodpecker and say, what do you think this is? And they won't be able to say.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I think you notice it right away, and whether you get a good enough look at it to see the redhead and stuff depends on whether it lands nearby or flies a little further off and stuff. And so, I really wonder on the population trends. Well, it shows you the real value of a citizen science data set like eBird, where now you can look at long-term trends as time goes on to begin to see whether those fluctuations may be regional or not.
Okay. And
I
then I
Because
love the
saw,
descriptions of them flying checkerboard,
yeah,
which
yeah,
that totally cracked me up.
yeah. It's such
and
a
I don't know.
distinguished, like their feathers. It's such a distinguished when you see it in the air. When it's flying, you don't forget it. And it's like, I don't know. I love they're identifiable when they're in the air. They're identifiable when they're on, a branch. It's like, I don't know, for different reasons. It's like when you see it flying, it's definitely what it is right away. Yeah.
So it's in the genus Melanerpes. We have 2,481 Melanurpes cataloged in our collection. And as I love words, so melis is Greek for black, and herpes is Greek for creeper or climber. So black, and so that's what its genus name means. And erythrocephalus is obviously means red and head, so red-headed creeper, which I think is a very descriptive aspect of it. So it depends on taxonomy again. Like I said, don't tell me to give you absolutes. There are roughly 24 species of in the genus. Even that varies depending on how you look it up. And they're exclusively in the New World. So woodpeckers are worldwide, but this genus is exclusively in the New World. Mainly in Central and South America. That's where the most of their diversity is. And the really cool thing about their tree of life is that for a long time, until really recently, people thought the closest living relative was acorn woodpecker. And that's not the case. So if you go back and look at some of the classic things on woodpeckers, there's a Lester Sort, who's a famous ornithologist who was a curator at the American Museum. If you look at his woodpecker treatise, you'll find them near acorn woodpecker, which when you look at them kind of makes sense, right? They both, they both eat acorns and stuff like that. They're red, and black and white, but so are a lot of things in that genus. But it turns out that that's not what happened. So this bird is related to Guadalupe woodpecker and Puerto Rican. I don't know if it's wood.
Yeah, Puerto Rican
it is.
woodpecker.
Are those woodpecker? I wasn't sure. But yeah, so that was not. That's kind of a little bit. Well, it's crazy.
Do those look similar or not?
No.
No.
They
Okay.
don't.
Okay.
So that genus includes red-bellied, and you guys have had Gila woodpeckers out in the Southwest, right? Have you guys seen?
I think
Is that the ladderback or
no? Ladderback is another genus.
Okay.
But Melanurpes. So Melanurpes is in the same genus as red-bellied, or includes red-bellied woodpecker. And so there are these ladder-backed birds with kind of tan heads, and there are a whole bunch of members of the genus that look like that are just variations going into Central and into Central America, basically. But then there are a few dark-bodied birds across the range, and the West Indies is a fascinating place because you get these oddballs that are morphologically distinct, probably because they've been evolving separately for a long period of time, but then are clearly in the same genus with members from North America, or Central America, or South America. And this is an interesting case of that.
So I'm going to give you an AI caution, an AI hallucination.
Okay.
Because I was thinking it might hallucinate on this, given how it hallucinates on kingfisher information. But actually, a lot more is known about these birds. But there's a hallucination. So, I wanted to figure out how many woodpeckers cache. So they cache, which means that they take their little acorns, go hide them somewhere. And what AI said is that there were only 3 other species that cache food. And they said acorn, downy, and red-bellied. And I'm like, no, that is no way that's true, because hairy woodpeckers cache too. So you can't just, I looked it up.
Okay.
Trust AI. Yeah.
So you have to be careful.
Extent.
Well, they might not, but they still cache.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what all do redheads eat?
They have a really eclectic diet, right, RJ?
Yeah, so they eat acorns, they eat insects, and they also are, one of the things that they do is they like hide them, like you were saying. So almost like an acorn woodpecker, they'll hide acorns in trees. But then I think what I saw was it's unique to them is they'll actually cover it with bark and wood. So I think acorn woodpeckers, you'll see just all these acorns like sticking out the side of a tree, whereas red-headed woodpeckers will actually go hide them and then like cover them up. And they'll also do it with insects. And I read that they'll do it with grasshoppers that are still alive.
Oh.
So we'll
Yeah.
catch a grasshopper
Yeah.
and they'll stuff it in a tree and it'll still be squirming and they don't kill it. And I don't know that poor grasshopper.
That poor
But I guess they like
grasshopper,
I guess they like fresh food.
Yeah.
Yep.
Keep it
Like
alive
putting
as
it
long
in the
as possible.
fridge, right?
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
right.
Yeah, keep it
Yeah.
alive.
Birds
yeah.
got to eat.
Yeah. And then I wanted to share too just a story from just last weekend. Amanda and I we were in New Buffalo, Michigan, and there's a river there called the Galion River, and you can rent paddleboards and kayaks and go up and down this river. And so we went and rented paddleboards and had a really fun like half of the trip, and then the second half was miserable. But before we get into that, we saw a lot of red-headed woodpeckers, and so it's this river, but it's also like a marsh on either side, like this big open marsh, and then there's trees everywhere too, some like dead trees. And so now after doing the research, it was like this clearly is somewhere that they would hang out. But it was cool because we actually saw them. I mentioned like seeing earlier when they were eating cicadas, but I feel like we saw them on this trip also eating bugs and almost flying back and forth, like similar to when you see like swallows, which, I feel like where we see red-headed woodpeckers near us, it's not open enough to really get a sense of them feeding on insects. But here you could clearly see them kind of like flying back and forth across the river like they were going after insects. So that was cool to see. But I also just wanted to tell the story about our paddleboarding because
Because it was so much fun.
it was so much fun for the first half. I don't know. Amanda, do you want to tell it? You want me to?
You tell it. And I'll
Okay.
add commentary.
Okay. So you rent kind of at the mouth of this river, and it's a very it's not really a flowing river. It's just open, just kind of this. So there's not supposed to be any current or anything. And so you kind of start at the mouth and you go inland and go like away from Lake Michigan and more just down this river. And so it's all just like marsh on either side and like kind of muck. There's nowhere to really pull over or anything. And so we were on paddleboards, and it was like the wind was at our backs the whole way. And so we were just like, oh, this is so easy. Like, I don't even have to paddle. The wind is just blowing us. And then we got to this point where it does like a V and comes back around. And someone told us they saw a bald eagle a little further up. And so we were paddling, but at that point we're going against the wind and we weren't making any progress. So we gave up on seeing the bald eagle and turned back around. But then when we came back around this V, the rest of the way was fully into the wind. And so we like when you're standing up on the paddleboard, your body's like a sail. So we were just getting pushed and pushed. And we saw people on like kayaks that are low to the ground, like going like no problem. And so we had to like get on our knees and like get close to the edge to try to like block the the wind, and we almost like flagged down a pontoon boat to see if they would like give us a tow. And so we went from like, oh, this is so cool, and we were seeing red-headed woodpeckers, and then all of a sudden to like send out the Coast Guard. It was
It's funny how you can be in situations where like birding is the farthest thing from your mind, even though it wasn't much earlier in the day.
Right. Yeah. We were taking mental notes for because we didn't have our phones with us, but taking mental notes for eBird. Oh, we're going to log all this. And then it got to the point where it's like, oh, if we make it back.
We just need to survive at this point. Yeah.
eBird list not submitted.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. We were so miserable, and RJ's like usually I think it's like one of the things that I love about him the most, but also is super annoying sometimes. Like he looks on the bright side of every situation. And this was awesome because like I was super struggling when we started to go back, and he like his way of comforting me was just like, this was by saying like, this sucks. And it was like we were on the same page, and it was like that totally made me feel better. And then we just we would go just short distances and then go into the lily pads and rest. And that's how we made it back. I was one side, there was no, like RJ was saying, there was no real land
we'd have to like dig our paddles down in the muck and hang on to it like anchored down. Otherwise it would just blow us away.
Yes. Yeah. It was crazy. Yeah, and then we finally made it back, and then I think we went to get beers at like 10:30 a.m. And that was the happiest moment of my life.
Yeah.
Beer always tastes better after something.
Yeah.
Yes. We had
Yeah.
survived. Yeah. So
Well, I did have
You
I
saw
did have one
Red-headed-
more. Yeah, we saw
Yes.
Red-headed Woodpecker, and there was another cool thing that we saw that we've talked about before, but it was cool to see firsthand. So there were a ton of mallards, and they're in that period where they're like, don't mallards like they molt their feathers, and so there's like a period of a couple weeks or something where they can't fly. And so because we were like in the lily pads and in the
Yes.
reeds on the side, we like flushed out a bunch of mallards, like a group of like 20 of them, but none of them could fly. So we saw them all try to take off and like almost try to fly away. But really we're just like paddling across the water. And it took us a minute to be like, is something wrong? Like why? And then we were like, oh yeah, we were like, they can't fly right now. So it was cool to see that firsthand. I felt bad that we were scared. We were the ones scaring them off, but we were desperate too.
Yeah, I didn't care at that point.
No, we were trying to hang on to them to see if they would fly us back.
Exactly. It's like, no mallard.
Yeah.
20 mallards to pull a.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, more than 20.
Gonna put a harness on them.
Yeah.
It can be like a Christmas story. You can see the mallards. So
Yeah.
take you.
Never
So,
works.
that was
Those
awesome.
situations are always. So it sounds like you weren't scared. You were just annoyed.
Yeah.
Is that-
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was,
We
yeah.
were
it was
physically exhausted. Yeah.
Yeah. There were other people nearby that were on. If something really got unsafe, we could have flagged somebody down or something, but it was,
Yeah.
I don't know. It was hard.
Yeah. That was crazy.
But it was fun.
Yeah.
When we saw the red-headed woodpeckers, I was like, oh, this is, I don't know, something to note.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking about this with olive-sided flycatcher. It's a bird that is really true to what they say. I mean, every once in a while you see it in a place where you're not looking for it. I love getting to wet areas with dead trees, and we did this up at one of the forest preserves up on the Illinois border. And it was actually, who was I with? I was with, who did I go up
Not-
there with?
Must be Louise.
No, it wasn't Louise.
Hmm.
No, it was Louise actually. Yeah, and we went down into the to this area where I said to her, you know, there's some dead trees out here. If you look through this gap in the forest, we've seen red-headed woodpecker before, and we look out and there's one red-headed woodpecker sitting on a tree.
Oh. Awesome.
Yep, there it is.
They're so cool.
But they
Yeah.
are migratory, and one thing I was gonna
Mm.
I was thinking because of something Shannon said is they have a really interesting migration pattern. So they breed all across the Midwest and up into southern Canada. So we're kind of at the and at the same time there are resident populations all the way through the southeast. And then when migration happens, they pull out most of them out of the Midwest. We still get them once in a while in the Christmas counts, for instance, up in Wisconsin. But as they go south, they don't get any farther than Florida, and they don't really occur in the West Indies to speak of.
Oh, interesting.
It's interesting that their relatives are the birds from the from Puerto Rico and Guadalupe. You know, that's an interesting thing because again,
They won't cross.
they're not one of these birds that seems to get outside of that distribution very well.
Hmm.
I was just
Interesting.
looking because I think it's so fascinating. There's one record for Bermuda,
Oh,
And-
crazy.
which means that there's a bird that got off the East Coast somehow and got as far as Bermuda, which is 400 miles off the coast. But they don't get to the West Indies on a regular basis, whereas lots of other migrant birds do.
So
I
I
think-
like that
Oh, go ahead.
this bird was Alexander Wilson's spark bird is what I read.
I saw that.
So, and
Bet he
back
say
to
that.
societies. What's that?
I'll
he
bet
said
he did.
that. He did.
said
No,
it-
he did.
He coined the term spark bird.
No, but he definitely chose that as his bird. So,
Okay.
Um,
And so
he called it
he's
the
a
most
famous
universally,
ornithologist.
the
Yeah.
most universally known bird in North America is what he called it.
Oh,
So the
awesome.
Wilson Society is named after him, and he's one of the most
Oh.
famous naturalists of his time. He started painting birds of North America, I don't know, at least a decade before Audubon started doing that.
Wow.
And his painting of red-headed woodpecker was really spectacular, including when you think that for him, that bird was really important. So, you can look at that painting with a different feeling in your heart, I suppose, to what it meant to him to paint that bird and how important he thought that bird was.
It's neat to note
That's
that in the Edward Eyre Library at the Field Museum, we have some copper plates from Wilson's books
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Very
Cool.
that they
cool.
use. It's
Cool.
neat stuff.
Yeah, the rare
Cool.
book room in the museum, it's almost never open to people, except they usually pull one thing out and have it in the entrance to the museum, in the entrance to the library, so you can go see something from that. But it's always
Cool.
a special treat if you get taken into the climate-controlled space, which when you're in a
wow.
100-year-old building, not such an easy thing to do to climate control any spaces. But yeah, so we have some really nice old books, old prints, old things.
That's
Awesome.
cool. There's a lot of original Audubons there too. Is that right?
Yeah, we have one of the
Yeah.
better Audubon folios in the world,
Oh, cool.
That's so
which is
cool.
on display, and they turn the page every couple weeks.
Cool.
Very cool.
So there are fossils of this bird, which I didn't know, 2 million years old in Florida, Virginia, and Illinois. So
Oh,
that's pretty
wow.
cool.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That's so cool. 2 million years old?
Incredible.
Yeah.
That's how, wow.
That's wow.
That's so cool.
When they say that, what they're meaning is there's somebody's found one bone probably, and they've been able to say that it's red-headed woodpecker as opposed to something else, which is
Oh.
a whole interesting topic that we should touch on someday.
Oh, okay.
With an expert, because neither one of us is an expert in that. Yeah. I mean, that bird is
Amanda,
also
do you want to read up
played-
for that for your episode?
No.
You can't be our
hard no.
expert.
We can give you some literature if you want.
Well, we also have people. We would bring in people who have that
Yeah.
expertise.
Yeah.
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 That would
Is
not
it
be either one of
controversial?
us.
Is it controversial that
I think it's really
That-
hard to have the
Mhm.
expertise in order to actually get bones to species level.
okay.
And there has been controversy of people thinking things are something, but then they're not. And avian paleontology has been full of characters and personalities and tribalism and, goodness gracious, misogyny. You name it. It
Mhm.
exists in avian paleontology. There are lots of weird things. The avian paleontologists can use different names for bones than the people who study modern birds do. So
Oh.
that's how separate the literature can be
Wow.
between these two groups of people, which is a little bit bizarre. And I think it's a lot better since we started in science, the integration across the fossil people and the living bird people. It's nowhere near as separated and siloed now compared to what it was, 15, 20 years ago or more.
But I always think it's interesting that if we could take a time clock back 2 million years, what we'd see that isn't represented today by anything. And a lot of the material that they end up getting in terms of fossils from, say, 2 million years ago aren't necessarily extensive representations of what's around, or what was around then, or how it relates to today. So there's still a lot of gaps in the fossil record. It's not common to have a 2 million year old fossil of many North American species, I don't think.
Wow.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Interesting.
So this bird was used as a war symbol by Cherokee people,
Oh, wow.
which
Oh,
so it
cool.
has kind of larger cultural significance. So apparently it's an omen of, the need to be brave, things like that. So there's this, it's in Longworth's Hiawatha. So if you read that poem, you'll find it, that story, you'll find it there too.
That's
So
cool.
I found that kind of interesting.
I love the
about
cultural
it.
significance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amanda, that was an
You know,
omen for us to be brave on our paddleboards.
That's
you go.
right, Bear.
Yeah.
Yes. And then 3
Yeah.
quick beers.
And then
Yes.
3 quick beers. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. We've only seen olives like
Which totally happened for both of us. There was 3 quick beers.
So this group of birds, there was a really interesting study that was published in 2024 by Cassie Stoddard, and the lead author is Monica Carlson. They did this really interesting thing with the pictures of museum specimens, trying to chart the evolution of the patterning on the backs of this genus of birds, how white and black interplay across the varying parts of the body. And so they came up with some really special spatial analyses that let them go back in time and hypothesize what the ancestors of the genus Melanerpes had. And the fact that the
cool.
varying lineages are evolving the patterns and the colors, this black and white contrasting things, and the orientation of the black and white, that different lineages within that are evolving those characteristics in different ways, which is also really interesting. Fun things that you can do.
I think we're getting close on time for this one. We do have a mailbag question. And so this is from Adam. And so I think Adam left us a comment on YouTube, but then followed up with an email. So Adam said, really enjoy this podcast, and today's show is especially fun. I think it was the Guam Kingfisher episode that he was commenting on. He said, you guys touched on the predation of birds by cats. Wondering if you'd recommend resources to share with cat-loving friends who need convincing. All the best. Cheers, Adam.
Oh, good
So-
question,
Well,
Adam.
he better put
Right.
his armor on when he's sharing these things with his outdoor cat-loving friends, because this is you don't wade into this lightly, because this is a very heated kinds of things. So one of our best friends wrote probably the easiest book to read, because it's geared for a public audience. It's geared for the lay people, and we'll put these resources when we drop this episode. We'll put the resources in with the episode so you can see. And so this book is called Cat Wars: The Devastating Consequences of a Cuddly Killer. And that title was chosen purposefully. And the lead author is Peter P. Mara, who is one of our best friends. Our son is named after him.
Wow.
And there's a lot of research that's been done by credible people showing the influence that cats have on killing native wildlife. Bells don't stop that. Neutering them doesn't stop that. Cats are not native to North America. House cats are not. So they are an introduced pest when they're outside. They kill billions of birds in North America every year. And outdoor cats have much, much shortened lives, and we'll drop the evidence for that too, with disease, injury. So if you're leaving your cat outside or thinking you're doing them a favor by letting them roam free, you're actually sentencing them to a diseased life that's significantly shorter than an indoor cat would be, and you're sentencing all the small wildlife around them to murder. And this is not a knock on cats. This is what they do. We've had cats. Our son has a cat, although I don't think he's really the cuddly part. I might agree with, but the killer part, I'm not sure even though he was a rescue cat, I'm not sure how on earth he made it in the great outdoors. But they're just not native. So it is not true that your cat needs to be outside to have a good life. And if you want to take them out, there are harnesses and collars. And leashes. You can take them out like you would a dog if you can get your cat to do that. And we know plenty of people, friends of ours, who do that with their cats, who take their cat everywhere like that. And that, that's it. They're on a leash. They're not free to roam and kill birds, and they're not going you can protect them from interacting with too many other cats and then getting things like feline AIDS and these lung diseases that are absolutely horrible for cats, or into cat fights where they get bit and, um, you know, and have permanent debilitating injuries from some of the things that might happen to them. So, keep your cats inside. You can put a catio in. We'll put a link to Wayfair, which has
A
dozens
catio?
and dozens of catios. So people are turning their patios into places where a cat could go. And I would totally do that in this house. If we had a cat, I would wall off a little bit of our outside patio for a cat to go outside. So, all of those things are possible so that your cat can get, breathing outside air, have a diverse place to kind of roam around and find themselves. But don't let them outside, just
One of
free.
the things the arguments that's made in cities is that they help control rats. They're not actually good at catching rats.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a
Yeah.
prey that they like, but they go after small mammals and small native mammals and amphibians and reptiles too. And so they're just devastating, and it's a global phenomenon. So there was a researcher in our mammal division a number of years ago who'd worked extensively putting out trail cameras in these seemingly pristine forests and islands in the South Pacific, and the commonest animal in the camera traps would be feral cats.
Oh, geez.
In a situation where he was looking for these endemic rodents that hadn't been seen in 10 or 15 years. And it's likely that, the hopeful thing is that they may still be up in the trees someplace avoiding cats if they can. But they're just devastating in all kinds of habitats, including all of mainland North America.
I
They're
remember when we were
very
at
good at what they do. Cats are very good.
I remember when we were at your barbecue earlier this summer, and I think years ago I probably would have thought like, oh, a cat is just gonna get like a house sparrow or something. How big of a deal that is. And I think Jacob told a story about on Hawaii that there was some bird sanctuary that had all these birds where there were only a few left of their entire species, and somehow a cat had gotten into this sanctuary and wiped out a bunch of these birds where there were basically none left in their entire species. And it's like, I mean, they're devastating everywhere they go. So
Yeah.
that was
it's
a real shocker when I heard. I was like, oh my gosh,
They're a big
Terrible.
they're a big cause of recent extinctions of birds.
it's terrible.
They get on
Awful.
islands. Birds that are native on islands are not used to cats. Again, cats are not native. House cats are not native, and so there's no defenses against them. Um, Cats can climb, so it's not like you can climb. I'm going to just nest higher in a tree. The cats will be like, okay, well, I'll just follow you higher in the tree, or I'll put you in where there are other predators like snakes. Uh, yeah, keep your cats inside, and it's a really controversial thing. So be prepared if you're going to tackle this issue with your friends. Try to do it with as much information and from the cat's perspective too, about what a cat's life is like when they spend time outside like that. I don't think people who think of cats, as their pets like that really think about what the end of their pet's life would be if they let it outside, or what the end of all the cats' lives are like that are in some of these trap, neuter, and restore colonies. They do not live happy lives. They do not live healthy lives.
So it was a small data set, but an office mate of mine when I was finishing my master's degree at the University of Arizona got some money from I don't know whether it's the city of Arizona, or city of Tucson, but there was an area that bordered around what's called Saguaro National Monument, now Saguaro National Park, and they wanted to increase the housing density. People were concerned that cats would go into the park, and so he got money to put transmitters on people's house cats. And the data set wasn't big, but there were only two types of cats. There were ones that stayed within about jumping distance of getting up on a tall wall around the neighborhoods on the edge of the park. versus the ones that went into the park. And the ones that went into the park, the only things they found were the collar because they'd been eaten by coyotes.
Oh, good.
Wow.
So you start realizing there are some controls out there, but they
Yeah.
have to be there. And again, that doesn't mean that they couldn't rove around the neighborhood still killing birds. But it's, again, when Shannon says their lives in the outside are not necessarily all that long or pleasant,
Mhm.
it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And when you
That's
read
really
some of
interesting.
these scientific things, these cat colonies that are outside attract more cat colonies, more cats into them. So it's just no good in any way. And spaying and neutering them doesn't stop a cat colony from growing. It doesn't. So you capture them, you neuter them, and you release them. There just more and more cats are coming, and that one will then not be able to reproduce, but that doesn't mean it's going to live a happy life. That doesn't impact the rest of wildlife, and a bell does not do it. Cats are too smart for a bell to do anything.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of sound in the environment. Do birds hear the bell in that way? Bells aren't native to cats either. A bird might be able to figure out that I should keep away from a cat, but what does a bell do? Be better off putting your cat in a hawk outfit, putting them outside, dressing it up like an eagle, and then because that's going to be recognizable to the birds that this is a predator, and dress them up like a snake. But
Well, thanks,
so be
Adam.
prepared, be armed with data, and be careful of the sources you look at, because a lot of the TNR sites look scientific, but they aren't. So you have to understand what a good source of information is when you start looking around.
And we'll post all those links that Shannon talked about too in the show notes, Adam, so you can have those to start convincing your friends. So
Yeah, great question.
yeah,
Good luck.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
All right. Well,
but I honor that he wants to do that, right? I mean, good for
it's
him that
awesome.
he's
Yeah.
want to learn so that he can do that. The birds appreciate the effort.
It's the right thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Pete Mara had death threats. So,
oh my gosh, for writing that book. Oh,
for sure. And so have other people who have waded into this area. So
good luck, Adam. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. I guess I'm going to close it out then on the red-headed woodpecker. So go look for him and make sure you know which way the wind is blowing before you go paddleboarding.
Yes.
I think you've convinced people they shouldn't go paddleboarding.
I know. I think
You're
that
right.
was,
Yeah.
I think
Or
that
just
was our
don't go.
last time, too. Yeah.
Or go with a motor on your paddleboard.
That's a better idea. Get a pontoon boat.
You can still see red-headed woodpeckers that way.
True.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Thank you to everyone for listening. We continue to get great feedback from you all, so thank you for being a part of this with us. You all are the reason why we do this, so thank you for listening and following along. See you all next week. We love you all. Thanks.